They designed a chair with 1,500 iron spikes. Then they made you sit on it, naked for hours. This was medieval justice, not quick executions, not simple hangings. Devices engineered to keep you alive, conscious and screaming for as long as humanly possible. For the next 10 minutes, you'll see the 10 machines that made grown men confess to crimes they never committed, ranked from brutal to unimaginable. Devices so effective that the sight of them was often enough. Most prisoners talked before anything touched their skin. From the dungeons of the Tower of London to the chambers of the Spanish Inquisition, these are the 10 most brutal torture devices ever created. How they actually worked, the real people who suffered on them, and the twisted logic that made them legal. Number 10, the thumbscrew. It looks almost harmless. A small metal vise, no bigger than your fist. But the thumbscrew was one of the Inquisition's favorite tools. Your fingers were placed between 2 metal bars, sometimes lined with small spikes. Then the torturer turned a screw, slowly, methodically, until the bones in your fingers began to crack. The genius of this device was simple. It caused extraordinary pain, but it never killed you. You could confess at any moment, or you could watch your own hands being destroyed, one knuckle at a time. In 1596 Scotland, a woman named Alison Balfour was accused of witchcraft. The inquisitors brought in her son. They placed his legs in a device called the boot and began crushing them while she watched. Then they did the same to her daughter. Alison confessed to everything. She was executed anyway. The thumbscrew was just a warm-up, because if you stayed silent. Number 8. Rat torture. A metal cage, a handful of starving rats, and your exposed stomach. The cage was placed upside down on your abdomen, open side against your skin. Then the torturer placed hot coals on top. As the metal heated, the rats panicked. They clawed at the walls, they bit at the bars, and then they found the only escape route, the soft flesh beneath them. To survive, they started digging. Through your skin, through your muscle, into your intestines. You could feel them moving inside you, and there was nothing you could do. During the Dutch revolt in the 16th century, a commander named Diederik Sonoy used this method on prisoners of war. Contemporary accounts describe rats gnawing into the very bowels of victims while they screamed for hours. This technique was so effective that it resurfaced in the 20th century. Military dictatorships in Chile, Argentina, and Brazil all documented its use. Some tortures fade into history. This one keeps coming back. Number 7. The iron chair, a throne made of nightmares, 500 to 1,500 iron spikes covering every surface, the seat, the back, the armrests, even the leg rests. The poor man was stripped naked and forced to sit, iron clamps locked around their wrists and ankles, and then the real nightmare began. Any movement drove the spikes deeper. The natural instinct to shift your weight, to relieve the pressure, only made it worse. The spikes were designed to pierce flesh but miss vital organs. You bled slowly, you stayed conscious, and you couldn't escape your own body's reflexes. But the Inquisition wasn't satisfied with spikes alone. In some versions, a fire was lit beneath the chair, the iron heated to over 100 degrees. The spikes became burning needles. Contemporary accounts describe the smell of roasting flesh filling the chamber. Victims would confess to anything: witchcraft, heresy, crimes they'd never committed. The iron chair was used in Nuremberg until 1840. Number 5. The scavenger's daughter. The rack stretched you apart. The scavenger's daughter did the opposite. It crushed you into yourself. Invented by Sir Leonard Skeffington, Lieutenant of the Tower of London under Henry VIII. This device forced the body into an impossible position. Your head was pushed down to your knees. Your arms were wrapped around your shins, and then the iron frame was tightened. The compression was so severe that blood would burst from your nose and ears. Some accounts describe it spurting from fingertips. Your ribs pressed against your lungs until breathing became agony. Every heartbeat felt like it might be your last. The Tower of London kept both the rack and the scavenger's daughter available. Interrogators would choose based on the prisoner. Some people broke faster when pulled apart, others when crushed together. The warders learned to read their victims. They knew which device would work fastest, which would extract the confession with minimal permanent damage, in case the prisoner was needed alive for trial. This wasn't mindless cruelty. It was calculated, professional, and that made it infinitely worse. Number 4. The heretic's fork, a metal rod with two sharp prongs on each end. One end was pressed into your chest, just below the throat. The other end dug into the soft flesh under your chin. A leather strap held it in place. If you lowered your head, the prongs pierced your throat. If you raised it too high, they stabbed upward into your jaw. The only way to avoid pain was to keep your head perfectly still for hours, for days. This device wasn't designed to kill, it was designed to prevent sleep. After 3 or 4 days without rest, the human mind begins to collapse. Hallucinations, confusion, desperation. Prisoners would confess to anything just to be allowed to close their eyes. The heretic's fork was often engraved with the Latin word abjuro, I recant, a constant reminder of what the Inquisition wanted. One word, and the torture would stop. Number 3. The saw. The victim was hung upside down, naked, legs spread apart. The blood rushed to their head, keeping them conscious for what came next. 2 executioners positioned the saw at the groin and began cutting downward, through muscle, through bone, through organs. Because of the inverted position, the brain received enough blood to keep the victim aware through most of the process. Some accounts suggest victims remained conscious until the saw reached their abdomen. This method was used across medieval Europe for crimes considered unforgivable: treason, witchcraft, blasphemy. There was no confession to give, no information to extract. This was pure punishment, a message written in blood for anyone who might consider similar crimes. Number 2. The rack, a wooden frame, 4 rollers, ropes attached to your wrists and ankles. And then the turning began. The rack stretched the human body beyond its limits. First, the joints dislocated. Finally, if the torturer kept turning, the limbs would separate from the body entirely. It was used on suspected traitors and heretics to extract confessions and the names of accomplices. In 1546, a woman named Thumbscrew was strapped to the rack. She was 25 years old, accused of Protestant heresy. The authorities wanted her to name other Protestants, including those close to Queen Catherine Parr. Anne refused to speak. The Lord Chancellor himself took over. He and his assistant turned the handles with their own hands until, according to Anne's own account, she was nearly dead, her joints separated. She had to be tied to the stake because her body could no longer support itself. She still hadn't given them a single name, and Thumbscrew remains the only woman officially recorded as tortured on the rack at the Tower of London. Number 1. The breaking wheel. If you've made it this far, you've seen devices designed to crush, stretch, burn, and tear the human body, but none of them compared to the breaking wheel. The victim was tied to a large wooden wheel, arms and legs spread across the spokes. The executioner then took an iron hammer and began breaking bones one by one, systematically. The process started with the feet and worked upward: ankles, shins, knees, thighs, then the arms, wrists, forearms, elbows. Each strike was calculated. The goal wasn't death, not yet. Once every major bone was shattered, the executioner wove the broken limbs through the spokes of the wheel. The wheel was then raised on a tall pole and left in public view. And here's what made the breaking wheel the worst device ever created. The victim was still alive. With medical care, a person could survive for days in this condition. Birds would land on the wheel and begin feeding on the exposed flesh. The victim watched it happen, felt it happen, and there was nothing they could do. In France, if the court showed mercy, they ordered the executioner to deliver a coup de grace, a killing blow to the chest, after the bones were broken. This was considered the humane option. The breaking wheel was used across Europe until the 19th century. The last recorded execution by wheel took place in Prussia in 1841, not the Dark Ages, the same decade as the invention of the telegraph. 10 devices. To the Strappado that tore shoulders from their sockets, to the breaking wheel that kept victims alive for days while birds ate their flesh. These weren't the inventions of madmen, they were legal instruments, approved by courts, operated by professionals, witnessed by crowds. They were justice. Torture was one way to die in the medieval world. Disease was another, and it was far more common. Next video. What actually happened to your body when you caught the Black Death, hour by hour, from the first symptom to the last breath.